In this demo, we are showcasing SRE targeted canary deployment by using F5 APM, Microsoft Azure AD, and Red Hat OpenShift. Canary deployment is one of the most common approaches to promote availability for SRE SLOs. The idea is that you upgrade the application on a subset of the infrastructure and allow a limited set of users to access the new version. It allows you to test the new software under production load before deciding whether or not to release it more widely. First, let's look at the demo scenario. Let's say Claire is trying to access the book info application. The BigIP APM redirects the user to the OAuth provider, Azure AD. Once Azure AD authenticates the user successfully, it redirects the user back to BigIP with authentication code using JSON Web Token. This JWT token will be passed on to Nginx Plus. Nginx will forward the user to the old version of the application based on the JWT token. Since Claire is not a F5 employee, now James Lee is a F5 employee. When he tries to access the same book info application, similarly, BigIP will direct his request to Azure AD and then pass the JWT token received to Nginx Plus. This time, Nginx will forward the user to the new version of the application. As an F5 employee, he has access to version 2 and 3 for the new review services. Moving on, let's see how to set it up. The first step is to configure Azure Active Directory. We already registered an application. Next, go ahead to add a user attribute. You notice that we already created a user attribute with the name of F5 employee used to check whether the user is a F5 employee. Now we can go ahead to create a new user, Claire Lee. This user is not a F5 employee. We are signing up for a new user. Input the email address, then you will receive a verification code. When you get the verification code, copy and paste it here. Next, provide a password and input the user attributes such as your location, city, country, job title, name, whether this user is a F5 employee. Go ahead to click Create button. Moving on, Claire can open the application to check her access to book info application. Since this user, Claire, is not a F5 employee, she can only access the version 1 of this application. For each book review, as you can see, it does not show the rating. Next, we can go ahead to create another user, James Lee, who is a F5 employee. Similarly, input the email address, you will receive a verification code. Again, copy and paste it here. The same thing, provide a password, input the user attributes, country, job title, name, whether this user is a F5 employee. Go ahead to click Create button. Heading back to the application, we check this user's access to book info application. Since this time James is a F5 employee, he does have the access to version 2 and 3 for the same application. You notice that this is the view of the new version of book info application. For each book info review, it shows the associated ratings. The other thing is that we can log into BigIP to verify the user session variables. Open the session, scroll down the list of session variables. we can find JSON Web Token received from Azure AD, and it includes the user attributes and session state information. We are looking at the user information: name, the user is a F5 employee, city, country information, etc. Next, I'm going to show how you can easily change the user access by simply modifying the Nginx configuration. As we are looking at this Nginx policy, it reads a JWT token and grants user different access based on the F5 employee attribute. Now let's go ahead to change the Nginx policy. We are changing the access policy to allow non-F5 employee to access the new version, while the F5 employee to access the old version. Go ahead to apply the change. And we also want to restart the product service, which is using that policy. Now let's verify the change. Heading back to the login page, we log in as a user James Lee. Again, he is a F5 employee. Go ahead to input the username and password. Going back to the booking info application, in this case, the F5 employee now has the access to the old version. For each book review, you notice it does not show the rating. Similarly, logging as a non-F5 employee, input the username and password. This time, a non-F5 employee is granted access to the new version of the application. For each book review, it shows the associated ratings. This concludes our demo. Thank you for watching.